What's up YouTube? I'm Caesar and this is Addicted to Guitar. And today we're going to take this Firefly LP JR and turn it into a monster. Alright, so what is up YouTubers? I'm out in the garage and it is hot as fuck. So you are going to see me sweat through my shirt probably. I need to get a workbench on the inside of the house where the air conditioning is, but until then, this is where we will do the magic. So I'm just getting some tools out. First off, we need to take these strings off. So we'll take the strings off. Most likely I will lubricate this tremolo, this Tune-O-Matic bridge first, and we're going to measure where it's at now. So that way when I put it back on, I can get pretty close to where it is now, because having to redo the action after you do this is kind of a pain. So we'll get that done. Then we'll work on the nut. And then we'll try to clean that oily gunk off the rosewood fingerboard here. And then we'll string it all back up. Most likely I'm going to use D'Addario 10s. I like using 10s on these Tune-O-Matic bridges, because you can get that, that snap that you get from a nice 10 set of strings here. Now I actually had already replaced this E string on this guitar before, because the one that it came with broke, so I'm going to try to save this guy because he's not too old, and I'm going to use him on another guitar project that undoubtedly I will start. Because if you're going to break a string, most likely it's going to be your E string. So I'm going to hold on to this guy. Okay. Now, we're going to need some soft things here. Make sure we don't scratch the guitar. Let's get these strings off. Okay, so we've gotten the strings off of it. We just take advantage and we give everything a nice little rub down. Taking a look at the nut here. Yeah, I can see where the string is getting a little tight. Somebody told me these are bone nuts. It actually looks different than a plastic nut, so I could believe it's a bone nut. You know, it's not cut bad, but it's not really cut great. So I think just smoothing it out and working on it a little bit will make it awesome here. The hardware on this guitar isn't bad. I mean, it's not great. I would say on this guitar and on the Firefly guitars in general, they spend the money in the right places. So if you're only paying $120 for a guitar, you really don't have very much money to spend on hardware and pickups, but they can at least give you a solidly built piece of wood, and then you can go ahead and change the stuff that people change to your liking. So I think it's a pretty smart way of doing it, because I mean, you could probably spend what this guitar costs on just one of these nice P90s alone, and you can easily spend $200 on a nice Tune-O-Matic bridge. So I think if you're looking into a Firefly guitar, it's a fantastic beginner guitar, and it's not a bad intermediate guitar, as long as you're willing to put a little bit more money into it. And chances are, if you're an intermediate player, you're going to change the pickups anyway. You've already got an idea of what you like and the sound you like. So what I'm going to do is measure where this guy is right now, so when I come back, I don't have to worry too much and try to figure out where the action is. So this is at on
I'm going to use the millimeter side here. So from the top here, the wheel basically ends up at basically 7 millimeters. So at the 6th string, it's 7 millimeters. I'll take a look over here, and on this side, the wheel basically ends up at, about 7 millimeters. Okay. So that way when we put it back on, we can get pretty close to where we are. And then these guys, I'm actually going to loosen the tension a little bit anyway, but just to see where we're at here. This guy is at, we'll say 16 millimeters. Yeah. So the stop bar, that's 16 millimeters. Okay. So we'll take these guys out. And we're going to make a note that the intonation adjustment on this piece is going forward, so we got to make sure we put it back in the same place. So forward. You can tell it's not the greatest piece of metal. And then these guys, we'll just unscrew here. So that was that side. And this one is this side. Okay, so I basically just use regular old petroleum jelly. You don't really need too much, but I just put a little bit on the threads here. If this is an older guitar, I would try to clean out the gunk that's probably in there, but this guitar is not too old, so it's pretty clean in there. So we'll just screw it back in with a little bit of petroleum jelly. And this will make it a lot easier to adjust, especially when we've got a little bit of tension on there. Clean off some of the excess. Whew, it is hot. I don't know if you can see it, but my sweat is dripping off of me here. Alright, so 16 millimeters. So we are basically there. Now, like I said, I was going to release the tension on these guys, and that's what's great about these pieces, these Tune-O-Matic pieces here, is that not only can you adjust the action height on this one, but with this one you can adjust the string tension, so you can use a heavier gauge of strings and still make it a little easier to play and bend notes, because you can release a little bit of the tension. So we're just going to give it a couple windings here. Alright, I think that's going to work out good. So let's do this next piece. So a little bit of petroleum jelly here on the threads. Okay, and let's see where we're at. We were at basically 7 millimeters at the top of the wheel, so we're at 6, so that's about 7 right there. And this guy, yeah, he's basically there. Bring him down just a little bit. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. Oops. Alright, so the nut is going to take a little bit longer than that, so I'm going to readjust the camera here, so I'll be right back. Okay, so for this job we're going to have to be a little more careful. Got some special tools for it. So first off, what we want to do is tape this area up. Now usually people would not recommend that you use this kind of old school masking tape here. I'm not too worried about it, because I'm going to clean off this fingerboard when I'm done and try to get that oily gunk off anyway.
But as long as you don't push it too hard and you don't leave it on there too bad, too long, it won't leave too much residue, but it does leave a little bit. Prefer you use the blue tape or the green froggy tape or any of the other low tack masking tapes that are out there these days, but this is just so we don't scratch something inadvertently when we're using the files. Alright. And then these are our files. They're the slightly expensive but very cool Stu-Mac ones. These are great for these kind of nuts, that is the Gibson style where it rests at the top of the fret, at the top of the fretboard here. These are mandatory if you're doing a Strat style nut where it sits a little lower in the actual groove on the fingerboard. You cannot use one of the V-shaped ones. You have to use these, because if you try to use one of the V-shaped files like the Hosa files to do it, you're basically going to get a string buzz because you're going to not do it properly. So that being said, we've got these guys here. We're going to file it out just a little bit, and then we're going to use a little bit of sandpaper to smooth it all out. So these guys are 10 to 42, I believe. So we'll just get them all laid out real quick. So that's 10, 13, 16, 24, 32, 42. Okay. Now I took a look at the action before I took the strings off, and I kind of realized I've got a little bit of room to work with here. So not only am I going to smooth it out, but I'm going to take a little bit off here too to lower it. Now when you do this, you want to make sure that you're keeping it at an angle, because you don't want to flatten out the takeoff point. You want the takeoff point to be right here at the edge of the nut, and you want it to angle into the nut. So the last piece that touches the string, which would be the highest point of the elevation, you want it to be right here at the end. You don't want it to be way over here in the middle, because not only would that mess up your intonation, but it'll cause it to buzz. Okay? So we got to make sure when we file, we're filing at an angle, and that's why you really need to tape this area off, because you're going to be going like this, and these guys have these real sharp corners, and they will dig into your headstock there. So, got to make sure you're going straight to your angle, and just take a little off. That's about it. So set your ankle, make sure you're going straight, and just take a little off. So make sure you got the right one, make sure you're going straight, and just take a little off. And with these, a little goes a long way. You want to do a little now, and then when you put the strings on, you can see where you're at, and you can always do a little later. But you can't add material. You can only take material away, so you always want to do it slowly and cautiously, little by little, because you're really working with millimeters of material, and it's very easy to overdo it. Now this one we're going to do a little bit more.
is this file is so small that it takes a little while for the material to come off. So we're going to go ahead and this one we can kind of work a little harder. But there we go. Okay, so we've taken off a little material, but it's still pretty rough, so we're going to go at them with a little bit of sandpaper. Now this is 1000 grit, so it's pretty light. And what we don't want to do is dig into the middle of it. What we're trying to do is kind of round out the edges so when the string is in there, it doesn't get bunched up on the rough areas. So we're just smoothing it out. Just smoothing it out. I don't know if you guys are seeing all this sweat pour off my forehead here, but it is hot out here. Definitely have to consider getting an inside workbench because this is almost intolerable. Alright, just smoothing it out, making it nice. Then now what I'm going to do is use this set of old strings here, and I'm going to burnish, I think is what they call it. And you're just going to use the string as a little bit of a file to rub out any little last bits of stuff. Now typically people say to use a strings that's slightly bigger than what's on there now. I don't have a set of 11s handy, but I do have these guys right here, so we're going to go ahead and use them. So when you're doing this, again, you don't want to be too crazy with it because you're not trying to take off material, you're just trying to sand out and smooth it. So you're not digging in, you're more working the sides of it. You want to try to keep your angle. There we go.
Okay. I think we did it. Alright, so I'll be back with a little bit of cleaner and we'll try to get this oil off this fretboard here. Okay everybody, so I have closed the garage door and changed my shirt because I sweat through it, and opened up the door to the air conditioned room on the other side of the laundry room here, so hopefully it's a little more tolerable now. So I'm going to put a little bit of petroleum jelly on the nut when I restring it, but I think we did a pretty good job of smoothing it out. So we're going to take a look at this oily gunk that is on the fretboard. Let's see if I can show it to you guys. It's not coming off too easy. Oh, there it is. Can you guys see it? Alright. The sock is white. I guess that part's blue, but see how that black coming off? That unfortunately comes off on your fingers when you're playing this guitar. Look at all that. I like to use this furniture polish because not only does it help clean it off, but it also helps lubricate and oil up the rosewood with a good kind of oil. Oh yeah, look at all that. See all that? Man, look at all that stuff. Alright, so that is all the oil and junk. So they must oil it with something, maybe to help keep the rosewood nice, or to maybe give it a nice color and sheen. I think it kind of looks a little better without it. It's not the prettiest piece of rosewood, but it's not bad at all. It's got its character. Let's give it one more spray. I probably won't put any lemon oil on after this because I kind of feel like there's a lot of stuff on the rosewood right now. We'll give it a little bit to dry out and see where it is. See how much moisture this furniture polish puts into it. Yeah, it's still coming off pretty intently. So it may take a couple times. I don't want to do it too crazy and hurt the wood at all. or dry it out. But at least that keeps all that black stuff from having to come off on my fingers. So, there we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to go grab the squishy foam nail file I have, and we're going to just sand down a little bit of the sides here. It's not too bad, but there are some spots here, and since it's not bound and the rosewood doesn't have any kind of protective coating on it, just a little bit of sanding, and then we'll clean it off afterward. It should make it feel nice and smooth. So, we'll be right back. Alright, so here's that nail file I was talking about. And all we're going to do is just run it down the sides. And this is actually a trick that I learned from Phil McKnight on Know Your Gear. And the cool thing about these is that they're nice and soft, so they'll get into the curves of the fret. Now, I recommend you not do this to an expensive guitar, because you may end up scratching the wood a little bit and maybe you won't like the result. On a guitar like this, it wasn't the most intense fret job to begin with, so I don't think it's going to look any different afterwards. But if you do it on a $2,000 guitar, I mean, hopefully you don't have rough fretting on a $2,000 guitar, but if you do, you know, that guitar's had a lot more work. All the ends are probably nice and rolled. You don't want to come after that and just come in with a nail file and ruin the work. But yeah, hopefully if you're paying $2,000 for a guitar, you're not having to do this in the first place, right? So I'm just trying to be careful not to mess with the finish. You know, the finish on this guitar isn't that great. I think they save a lot of money on doing an okay job on the finish. I think where they spend the money on this guitar is in the right places. They spend it on playability and construction versus stuff that maybe you really don't need. And since I'm here, I'm just going to lightly buff out the fret a little bit. All right, much better. Nice. So then we'll come back around with the polish, because you do a little bit of scratching, so I just want to shine it up again. Ooh, there is a lot of oil on this neck. Okay, and there we are. So I think it looks nice. Everything's nice and shiny. Things are oiled up. So I'm going to put a set of 10s on here. Before I do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of petroleum jelly here on the nut. Some people don't like to use wet lubricants on the nuts. Some people don't like to put wet stuff on their nuts. You know, I'm okay with it. I am of the school that I use the lubricants, the jelly specific lubricants. They're just a little expensive, so I don't use them on all my guitars. I mostly try to save them for guitars with vintage style tremolos that you need the nuts to be real slick, because when you play you want your nuts to be smooth.
You don't need hairy nuts when you're trying to play.
Alright, so I'm going to grab that set of 10s and we're going to throw them on here. Most likely the video of me demonstrating the guitar after all these upgrades will be another video, because I think right now we're well into 20 minutes. But thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. Again, stop what you're doing right now. Look down there. Look down there. There should be a subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that button and then hit the bell, because YouTube will let you know when we're doing new videos. We're doing new videos all the time. And if you are addicted to guitars like us, you're going to want to be watching our videos. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Alright guys, so I just want to give you a quick update. The UPS guy just showed up outside and just dropped off my new Tagima TW55 Telecaster style guitar, so stay tuned, because that will be the new guitar in a bunch of videos. We'll probably do an unboxing video so you can share that experience with me, and then a bunch of videos to see how good these guitars are. I saw Marty on Marty Music just doing a song with his Tagima the other day, so I'm really excited to try them out. So, real quick update, Tagima guitars coming soon. Woo! Alright.